The idea of doing teacher observations in the first place is to help teachers basically have another set of eyes in the room and ears.
Social science collage.
So that somebody else can be absorbing some of the things that teachers do that they may not be aware of for themselves, and then use that information to sort of absorb into their teaching style. Can inform many different things: content, style, classroom management, all of those kinds of things.
How it is that you can capture what I'm saying.
The particular protocol that we used, or that I used in Mr. Griff's class, was one where you sit in the back of the class, the observer sits in the back of the class and basically writes down everything that happens. So it's not about analyzing or making a judgment, it's about just absolutely noticing as much as you can. So everything from how many students are in the room, where are they sitting, what kinds of interactions are happening with the students, what are you seeing the teacher do, what's the body language, all of those kinds of things are things that you can just write down from the beginning to the end of the class, and then have a conversation with the teacher at the end of that, where they have a chance to look at that and be able to sort of see that teaching day from another perspective.
Is everybody clear? Everybody have that?
This was very early in the cycle, so this is one of the first actual classes that was being taught, which is important because that's the stage where a lot of the emphasis has to be on kind of setting the tone for the cycle in the classroom.
Do you understand what you are expected to do and know at the end of this class?
It's a first period class, so that's always interesting because you sort of see the kids coming in various stages. There were a couple in the front row, a couple in the back row, and everybody else kind of in the middle. And the first thing that Mr. Griffith did when he walked in was to tell everybody to move up. He said, fill the seats in front of you, move up, move up. It's a very effective way to immediately put a different dynamic in the classroom.
I see no notebooks out, okay? The first thing you do when the bell rings is to come into class, take your notebooks out.
Next thing he did was he observed that not everybody had their notebooks out yet, and so that was the next thing was, and notebooks and pens should be out immediately when you sit down. I should not have to tell you that. And then immediately from there, he just kept it moving very quickly.
Okay, so at the conclusion of this lesson, students will be able to.
So the next thing was to put up the learning objectives. By doing that, he's setting up the expectations for himself, what he's going to be able to cover that day, and also is telling the students what they're covering that day and what they're going to be expected to be tuning into. He does the thing of reinforcing the learning objectives by having students repeat them back to him.
What was the second one?
Finding out the ways of knowing social science.
Mm-hmm.
So he's immediately engaging students in a way that is what you would call low risk. It's not a big scary like I have to think of this concept question. It's a kind of what did we just say? So there's a already kind of a almost call and response rhythm that is set up of students have small successes immediately. Plus, he's establishing that through this, the protocol in the classroom is you raise your hand when you want to share something.
Collecting the data, Marcus said, and then Jonathan said, analyze the data.
And one of the things that is his job on that first day is that he's getting students' names. Knowing the names of the students, individually is it's such a small thing, but it's one of the most important things that you can do to start to manage your classroom.
I need to know your name, sweetie. What's your name? Crystal? Crystal, what is the definition of geography?
So many of our students are coming out of schools where their teachers can have them for an entire year and still not know who they are. So if you're not even identified as a human being, as a person, an individual in the classroom, you're immediately disengaged. So part of what I saw Mr. Griffith doing in my observation was reinforcing learning the kids' names. So when he knew the names, he would use them, and if he didn't know the names, he'd say, remind me what your name is. There was a moment also where he did call a student by a wrong name, and immediately he went and dealt with the next opportunity he had to call on that child. He went over and he reinforced his actual name. He called him by his right name.
Anthony, that's your name, right? Anthony, right?
So that was a great acknowledgement of not trying to I don't know, wiggle out of it or something, but to just acknowledge that, no, I got your name right this time, you know, and I know who you are
The
now.
branch of social sciences that studies production, consumption, goods and services, and distribution of wealth. Production,
That's another great strength of Mr. Griffiths is that
consumption,
he goes from this language, the language of the social sciences, this kind of academic language, you know, talking about anthropology and sociology and geography and all these things, to very colloquial language.
Some people spend their money on Louis Vuitton. Some people spend their money on knockoff Louis Vuittons. Yeah, I know where to get them $25 Air Force Ones, don't you?
Immediately when he goes into kind of his colloquial way of talking with the kids, like they start to laugh and they start to relax a little and they start to, and plus they've got all these comebacks for him, you know? So he can juggle that kind of thing, because then when the kids kind of like, oh yeah, I get this, you know, he can then bring it back to the academic language and refocus on that.